Inform Nation, thanks again for joining us once again here at the InForm Fitness Podcast. 20 minutes with New York Times best-selling author Adam Zickerman and friends. I'm Tim Edwards with the Inbound Podcasting Network and a client of InForm Fitness, joined as always by Sheila Melody, the co-owner and general manager of the Burbank location, and from the Manhattan location in New York City, headquarters for the InForm Fitness empire, general manager Mike Rogers, and the founder of InForm Fitness, Adam Zickerman. Guys, in today's episode, we have an interview between you and a longtime client of InForm Fitness.
His name is Hence Orme, and he came to InForm Fitness in 2005, was here for 9 years, decided he wanted to do something else. He left InForm Fitness, and then about a year and a half later, decided he wanted to come back. And I thought this would be a great topic for our podcast.
Yeah, you know how it's saying goes. If you love something, set it free. And if it comes back, well, we'll take your money again.
Hence the return of the prodigal client,
Hence
right?
the return of the prodigal client. Perfect title for today's podcast. Here's our interview with Adam, Mike, and Hence.
Well, Hence, welcome to our show. I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
The reason I'm excited to have Hence here is because he's a client that started here many years ago.
2006.
2006. Was here for many years. He's experimented his whole life with exercise, and then he took a hiatus and he started experimenting with some more things after here. And now he's come back. And then Mike said to me, hey, guess what, Adam? Hence is back. And I said, oh, great. And Mike started to tell me what you've been doing, Hence, and then what led you to come back. And I was like, wait, don't tell me yet. Let's get this fresh on our podcast, because I think a lot of our listeners would appreciate to hear about your journey and how you came full circle, so to speak.
I was enormously excited when Hence came back about, I think it was about 3 months ago. And he started in 2006 in September. And, 10 years, we're enormously proud to have clients to have been here that long. And I just looked on the system, 351 sessions you've done with us over that time.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's an incredible thing. And, once a week, it's actually, it averages over the 8.5 years that you were here.
Yep.
It's about 41 sessions per year, which is that's pretty good, because that takes into account for vacations and time away or business trips or something like that. But so it's been really exciting. And
So let's start at the beginning. What brought you here in the first place back in 2006?
Sure. I think to start off with, Adam's right that I've been interested in exercise and fitness and health for a very long time, and have been training since I was a teenager, mostly weightlifting and running, and along the way have done a fair amount of reading and research, and going back to 2006. At that point in time, I was doing a lot of running, or at least a lot of running for me, somewhere in the range of 25 to 35 miles a week. And I had ramped up to that level pretty quickly. And what I was finding is that, at the age of, I guess at that time, 42, 41 actually, a lot of little things were starting to break down. Nothing major. But, the running was starting to take a toll. And I was starting to notice, for example, that I was having trouble walking the stairs up out of the subway. And it was starting to bug me. So my family and I were on vacation in San Diego, and so I was out of New York, I was out of the routine, and I could get a little time to think. And at the time, I happened to just be leafing through the local San Diego magazine, and they profiled some local trainers, one of whom focused on high-intensity training. And I called her up and just said, tell me about what you do and can I come train? And she did, but said, I'm sorry, I can't train you while you're here. Where do you live? So I told her that my family and I lived in New York City. And and she practically jumped through the phone at me and said, "Oh, wow, well, Adam Zickerman is the one I follow. You should read his book and you should go talk to him." So
I forgot that story.
Yeah, it's
I looked it up on the sheet. I was like, "Oh, San Diego."
yeah. So it was a really random occurrence. So I read the book. It made sense. And at this point, I really started to say to myself, "Look, I've been pushing running for me in my context, fairly aggressively, and it's having some negative results that I didn't anticipate, and I certainly don't want. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't want to run so much that I can't walk."
Did you have a goal in mind when you decided to start running aggressively? I mean, 35, 45 miles a week? Were you going to do a marathon or something?
I was never really thinking about doing a marathon. I was thinking about, being able to run maybe a fast 10K or maybe a half marathon. But
did you feel like you had to lose weight at the time, or you wanted to lose weight at the time?
No, not particularly. That wasn't really in the parameters at that point. But the negative effects were really starting to pile up, and so I said, all right, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go cold turkey. I'm going to stop running. I talked with Adam. We had a great conversation. What he said made a ton of sense. And so I made a big leap, a big experimental leap, and said, all right, I'm done with running for now, and I'm just going to train once a week at InForm. And the results were fantastic.
I remember you telling me you just gave up running cold turkey.
I did.
I remember it too. Like, yeah.
I did, and I like running. I'm not somebody
Right.
for whom running was.
I remember you telling me that too.
Right, or even is a chore. I still
Right.
like it, but I had to balance that versus the wear and tear that I was accruing. So so I stopped and started to train once a week. Very high intensity. It required something completely different of me, which is to be highly focused for a short period of time, with really no possibility of, okay, if I don't give 100%, I'm going to train in another couple days anyway, so it doesn't matter. I really had to focus. And, over the next several months, all of my running aches and pains went away, which is fairly predictable. If I just stopped running, I'm sure a lot of those aches and pains and issues would have resolved themselves. But I did get stronger.
Did it make sense to you immediately that the idea of a once a week workout was going to be effective, or did you have to actually take a leap of faith into that?
There was definitely a leap of faith. It was definitely a leap of faith. I'd done enough reading, not just Adam's book, but some other, some other authors to have the seed planted that maybe what we've all been taught about high frequency exercise is really not the whole story. There's a lot of damage that can be built up over time that is understated from higher frequency methods of exercise. But I still had to make that leap. And again, I came to InForm as an experiment. And
how long did that experiment last?
The initial phase of the experiment really started in September of 2006. Ran for about 9 months, where I really did nothing other than train once a week at InForm. I did no running. I did no weightlifting.
What was your conclusion after the 9 months?
My conclusion was that it was just shockingly effective. And the aches and pains from running went away. My ability to climb stairs came right back. I got a spring in my step again. Certainly got stronger. And sort of the most counterintuitive finding for me was that I lost weight. Now, when I was running, I wasn't thinking about my weight. I hadn't weighed myself in a long time. But I did what I think happens to many other runners, which is because I was running, call it 30 miles a week, I thought I could eat everything. And
Interesting.
when I finally stepped on the scales, I was pretty shocked at how heavy I had gotten. Mm-hmm. What happened over the next 9 months is because I was only training once a week, I couldn't deceive myself that, you're gonna click off 6 miles tomorrow, so you can go ahead and eat that extra piece of pizza or that piece of cake. I couldn't fool myself that way. So my diet improved, and I don't remember the numbers right off the hand, but I did start to steadily lose weight, which was an unanticipated benefit, and clearly just all around felt better.
I was looking at his consult form.
Oh no!
And what he put down for his regular dinner was PB&J sandwich and ice cream.
Yeah, well, this is
Did that change too? Did you change your eating when you started working out here?
Well, first of all, this is New York, so it's a very glamorous lifestyle. So this is dinner in New York. So.
I mean, I know Hence is a portfolio manager, pretty busy schedule, right?
Pretty busy.
Yeah.
I mean, not unlike most people.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it was pretty exotic and elaborate meals.
I know.
But no, I mean, certainly my diet changed, and it's. I mean, I attribute it to finally, in my early 40s, coming to understand that you cannot out-train a bad diet, and by decreasing the frequency of training. Again, I just couldn't deceive myself that I could just eat all I wanted. So that was an unanticipated benefit of moving to a high frequency or a high intensity, low frequency form of training.
Okay, so you had the 9-month experiment, and then you were here for many years after that. So the experiment was over. You kind of were convinced, and you stuck this out. You did it for once or twice a week. So I'm dying to know. So when you left, what'd you do?
Well, so, I didn't just say, I'm out.
Right.
I had continued to do a fair amount of reading and research. What I really was doing was experimenting with something else. So, reading McGuff, very helpful, learned a lot. I also started to read, some of what people have been writing about regular old school weightlifting, the power lifts, deadlift, back squat, bench press. And I thought their claims were interesting that you can.
You're talking free weights?
Free
All
weights.
Free weights?
Exactly. Yeah. Free. So, so Olympic bars. And I thought the claims of the school of thought were interesting, that these exercises are very functional. And if you think about it, there really is in life very, very, very little that doesn't revolve around either a squat or a deadlift or an overhead press or a bench press in one way or another. And so I thought, well, this is interesting. And it seems to make some sense. Going in, I thought there were some issues that I would have difficulty with, such as barbell on your back or lifting a barbell off the ground. And there's also just the time involved, because this method of exercise, the free weight training method of exercise, does demand several days a week. So these were issues that I knew going in, but I was interested in the so-called functional benefits of this form of exercise. For some period of time, period of weeks, I believe, I did some weight training away from InForm, and then I come to InForm and I do my normal workout.
Yeah, I remember you were splitting it up a little bit.
I was splitting it up,
yeah.
and that was just not. I was not going to learn what I wanted to learn by doing that. So I said, all right, let me take a break from InForm. Let me see what I can learn in the free weight world, and so I did. I was cognizant of the risks. So, I made sure to learn how to do the more dangerous exercises the right way. Really did invest quite a bit of time.
Yeah, remember, I didn't even discourage Hence. I loved our conversations. I love the exploration. It really forced me to even evaluate and think about all the other ways of doing things. And I remember just encouraging you just to be very mindful of what you're doing in regards to range of motion. And because I remember when we were working together and you were doing your workouts independently and then coming into InForm, and you were showing me how you were doing some squats with weights. and you were going really deep into it. And I remember I said I'd be very careful about going that far down, like almost all like where his butt was below the level of his knees,
like sumo wrestler low.
Yeah, really. And I was like, listen, I need you to be really mindful about doing that, because it's could be, you're going to an extreme range of motion with a lot of resistance, and those are usually what causes those breaking points.
Yeah, it's hard to bite your tongue, because when you hear somebody say they're going to do a dangerous exercise safely, that's like, to me, you know what I hear when I hear that? When someone says that, to me, it's like saying, I'm going to play Russian roulette safely. There is no way. There is no safe way to play Russian roulette. You are eventually, or could eventually, get hurt. And regardless of how careful you are, only because the nature of, let's say, a barbell squat is you have this long lever with weights at the end of it, being supported by a structure, a skeletal structure, a spine in particular, that if you torque to the left or the right a little bit too much, it's all over. And it's just hard to defend against that long term. You can get away with that. So there's no reason to do it if you can get the same effect of an exercise like that from a leg press or something where you don't take those kind of spinal risks. But I'm digressing.
Right. Well, so what I found from switching over to free weights was that the exercises are very effective. I felt like I definitely got stronger, in some really basic movements. I learned how to squat, I think, about as safely as one can. And learned how to deadlift actually quite safely. And I enjoyed the movement of those exercises. They were pleasant to do. But and I was able to progress and move the weight up and all that. But over a period of, I guess it was about a total of 18 months, I got to the point where I had gotten more capable of lifting heavier weight, but to the point where I really believed that I was starting to get to a tipping point where, I'd gotten stronger, and yes, my technique was pretty good, but if I were going to get stronger from there, I was going to be taking some risks. And it really took me that long also to really understand that even as the weight got heavier, and even as my technique stayed pretty solid, that I could not generate the intensity safely that I wanted to achieve. I would feel like maybe I have another.
What happens when you have a barbell on your shoulders and you're reaching muscle failure, right?
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem.
Or you have to put them down, or after you've failed on doing like dumbbell flies, how do you safely put those weights down?
Right.
There's a lot of different scenarios.
So you didn't have a trainer, Hence?
Well, I did early on just to get the technique right, and then I was really training myself. But it became really clear that there were times when I might have, say, half a rep left in me, but I had to rack the weight just for safety's sake. And
smart.
So after getting, and I never really got injured. I got a little tweaked once in a while, but I never got truly injured. Certainly witnessed a couple things in the gym that were a little disconcerting, but never myself got hurt. But after I got to a certain level at the major exercises, it was just really clear that I just couldn't safely progress. So,
but an intense stimulus, go forward with it.
Right. Yeah. Just could not generate the intensity with the safety that I wanted.
It makes total sense. So I guess that's when you started thinking about InForm again.
Right. So I went back. I reread Power of 10. I reread McGuff, and and I think as with any any discipline, it's one thing to read the book once or twice. It's another thing to read the book and then go experiment, try something, live it, and then go back and reread it and say, oh, that's what McGuff meant. Now I understand what he's talking about. Or that's what Adam meant. And
real understandings, I think, is a process like that. Oftentimes, to read it, you get the information, but to, as you said, to live it, and then go back and look at the text and what it's all about. That's when it really seeps in after you've done that a little bit.
Yeah, and it's neat. I mean, the time I spent, training with free weights, it is absolutely not wasted at all. I mean, I learned a lot from doing it. I'm glad I did it. I saw some tremendous athletes work out. And I got a sense of what that world is all about. But there's a difference between, training for a particular sport, whether it's Olympic weightlifting, whether it's powerlifting, versus training for health and strength and general well-being. And I think one of the things that comes through in McGuff, and that Adam tried to tell me 10 years ago, and I wasn't really ready to understand it, is the difference between fitness for a particular activity, whether that's a big bench press or whether that's a fast 10K, and health, and the two really are quite different. And I certainly have known people who are tremendously fit at a given activity, marathon running being a prime example.
Or football players, they're extremely fit at being able to jump and run and sprint and tackle, but they are dealing with tremendous amount of pain.
But there's tremendous pain, there's tremendous health issues.
Yeah. There are health issues. Well, that's the thing. Fitness is not, being really fit does not guarantee being very healthy. You can become fit and not undermine your health, or you can, based on how you determine the choice of how you get fit. The whole reason I chose to practice a form of safe, high-intensity training is because why in the name of fitness, or really why in the name of health, should you... I mean, it's ironic that a fitness program would undermine your health in the long run.
Right.
I mean, sports are one thing. If you want to play a sport and excel at a certain skill and activity, a recreational pursuit, and it happens to make you strong and fit, so be it. But do it because you love the sport, not because you think it's going to make you fit. The idea of choosing a sport to get fit is a little bit backwards. You should choose a sport because you love that sport. And some sports, depending upon the sport, of course, and the intensity of that sport, can get you very fit, can get you strong. But if your idea is just to get strong, to live a long life, a healthy, strong life, choosing a sport for that purpose is probably not the best idea. Choosing an exercise program that is going to make you strong as can be and delay that aging process, truly delay that aging process, and not at the same time undermine your health in the process. And the things that I'm talking about is what you were talking about before, the arthritis, the pain in the joints, all those kinds of overtraining injuries that can occur. And it's not worth it. Sports are worth it if you love sports. But if you just want to get fit, again, sports are not necessarily the best choice.
It's tough because oftentimes those things are insidious. They don't happen on day 1. They happen on day 400, and you're like, oh, wow, like that little tweak, which you could tolerate on the 20th day of doing something. And even on the 80th day, all of a sudden becomes something that's like, wow, that thing, now my shoulder is really bothering me. And those type of things, they kind of sneak up on you. One of the things I really admire, and I try to continue to apply it to my life as a trainer and everything is the idea to explore and to try things out. I mean, I feel like that's how how even Power of 10 evolved, is by seeing what else is out there, exploring it. I mean, you obviously want to have a good head on your shoulders and make sure that you're trying to take, relative precautions and just reasonable sense over whatever you're trying to do. And I mean, going back to Power of 10, it you can achieve the intensity. We know that an intense stimulus on the muscle is what really makes the adaptation a meaningful adaptation. And if you could do that in a safe way, then why wouldn't you try?
Way.
Yeah,
right. Well, I think the whether it's running, whether it's the weightlifting, both of which I've experimented with to quite an extent, they don't generate the intensity that we get through this form of exercise. And if you read through McGuff, there are tremendous metabolic benefits that come from achieving that level of intensity.
Yes, McGuff is talking about a lot of research that's been going on out there about how intensity is what's driving these health benefits, these physiological adaptations. It's the intensity, it's not the duration of the exercise. You can eventually get these adaptations with slow, steady state activities, but the risks to do so add up. For the same adaptations, you don't need to take those risks by just increasing the intensity and shortening the time of the workout and doing it in a safe manner.
And also the time in between workouts, it seems like it still is very contrary to what people think about exercise. Still a little bit like more is better, but if you do things intensely, whatever the activity is, whether it's boxing or running or weight training or yoga, the more intense the stimulus, the more time your body needs to recover in order for it to actually adapt and change.
Well, and I thought the number that you mentioned earlier was interesting. So you said that I've logged 341,
351. I know.
350. Okay, so 351 over now
8.5 total years.
8.5 total years.
Yeah.
So I mean, 351 sounds like a large number, and I think it should be actually considered to be a large number. But if you're doing a conventional type of workout, you would triple that number, right?
Exactly. You think about like if it's
how many workouts a year did that turn out to be?
If you do, it was 41 a year.
About 41
on the average.
workouts a year. Think about that.
A year. 41.
Right. There are people that think you should do that in 2 months.
Also, I'm saying well, the prescription in the American Heart Association says 3 moderate or 2 high intensity a week, or some people prescribe even more than that. They even say 4 or 5 days a week. But let's say 3 days a week. That's in 3 years you did 350.
Well, it is, and it's also, I think there's a psychology there too that I've found that I have trouble with, which is if you believe that you have to run 4 or 5 days a week, it at first it's kind of a cool challenge. Like, all right, I'm going to go do this. It's going to be awesome. But then you start to realize, okay, what am I having to not do? I'm having to, I'm not able to help my family the way I should. I'm not able to,
it's a lot of time, man.
It really takes a lot of time.
We've got lives to live.
And then that understanding of effectively the opportunity cost of what I'm not able to do because I'm doing this, it starts to erode at least my willingness to do that, to do that exercise. Whereas here, look, I'm, train once a week. It's great. Certainly, I mean, going back to when I first started training with Adam 10 years ago, and I asked the question that a lot of clients ask, which is, well, what should I do on vacation? And Adam said nothing. and I'm as type A as anyone. And I was like, what do you mean nothing? And but I took him at his word, and I actually did go away for a week and did nothing, and was shocked to then come back and find that extra rest resulted in my strength that following workout being quite a bit better.
It almost is. It's consistent almost in every case when people when they come back from their vacation, they get their personal best or they make a jump just by having that extra rest. It's amazing how counterintuitive that is.
Yeah, that's why I always like to tell people to not do anything on vacation. Just enjoy your vacation. Don't stress out about where you're going to exercise. Besides, usually the gyms at the hotels suck anyway. So that was great. Hence, I hope I learned a lot. It was great to hear that story. I'm glad you're back. And I hope And Mike, you did a great job. You two as a team did a great job over the years, and I love the communication. So kudos to you, Mike, and to you guys, and how you worked through that. There was no defensiveness. It was truly in an attempt to discover what was best. And it's a great story. And I hope for those listening out there, whether you exercise all the time and used to do what Hence does, or want to experiment with free weights, or want to realize that maybe less is more. There's something for everybody in this, I think. So thank you very much, Hence, for joining us.
Adam, thank you.
Thank you very much, Hence. It's great that you were on the podcast.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for being here.
Many thanks to InForm Nation member Hence Orme for joining us here on the podcast. Welcome back, Hence. If you've been listening to the podcast for some time now and haven't yet made the jump to set up a consultation at an InForm Fitness location nearest you, why don't you bounce on over to informfitness.com. At the time of this recording, we have locations in Manhattan, Port Washington, Denville, Burbank, Boulder, Leesburg, and Reston. And if you aren't currently near an InForm Fitness, don't worry, we got you covered. Grab a copy of Adam's book, Power of 10, the once-a-week slow-motion fitness revolution. In the book, Adam breaks down the 3 pillars necessary to achieve maximum benefits of this workout, along with simple-to-follow exercises that you can do at home or at a gym. We have the link to the book in the show notes of the podcast. Speaking of books, we are really excited about next week's guest here on the InForm Fitness Podcast. We'll be joined by biochemist and author of The Secret Life of Fat, Dr. Sylvia Terra. She'll explain how fat is our most misunderstood body part, which is why it can be so tricky to lose weight. In The Secret Life of Fat, Dr. Terra brings together cutting-edge research with historical perspectives to reveal fat's true identity. And once you understand it, you can beat it. Looking forward to speaking with Dr. Sylvia Terra next week, right here at the InForm Fitness Podcast. For Adam, Mike, and Sheila, I'm Tim Edwards with the Inbound Podcasting Network.